Good afternoon, everyone. Join us for our special project webinar for the Central Point at Bastion in Liverpool. Absolutely delighted you could join us. This will be being recorded, and the recording will be available to attendees. And we have put this, this is actually the third webinar I think we've done for Central Point, but you can see from those who have joined us, we're actually going to be getting a live look at the site. So really excited by this today. But first of all, let me introduce David Mason from INTEGRITAS. How are you, David?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Delighted to have you on. We'll hear a bit more from you in a minute. And we've also got
all's
David
good,
Mondey.
All's good on site, David.
Good. That's what I like to hear when it comes to projects. Also got David Mondey from ELAVACE, a sister company of INTEGRITAS. How are you, David?
Yeah, very good. In a nice warm office. Cheers, Dave. So as long as a couple of us are, that's all that matters, eh?
So obviously David Mason got the short straw, did he, to get on site today?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the way to do it. And delighted that Brenda from Leo Crowdfunding, the project coordinator, who's obviously worked with the team at INTEGRITAS to put the project on the platform. So hi, Brenda, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm feeling a bit left out because I'm not called David, so you can call me David too if you want to.
What a great name David is, but we'll leave that for another day. So I think I'm going to have to call David Mondey Dave, and then David Mason, we'll just call him David, and hopefully between the three of us we'll get there. But listen, let's get straight into this, because I want to get a good sort of update from David Mason on site. So we have done previous webinars where some of the slides were going into in a lot more detail that we won't cover today. We really want to just give you an update on the project. So first of all, very important to start off with the risk warning. This is an invitation to invest in a property project. We are an equity property crowdfunding platform. My name is David Johnson. I'm the CEO of this platform, and you see along the bottom there, Leo Crowdfunding is an appointed representative of Share Unlimited, which is authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Pitches for investment are not offered to the public, and investment can only be made by registered investors on the basis of information provided by Leo Crowdfunding. So it is important that you go and have a look at the risk warning, and it is very important you understand the nature and the risks associated with investing in property projects. So any questions along that, stick it into the Q&A. Brenda will monitor the Q&A, and as time allows at the end, then we'll answer any questions that we can for you. So this project is quite a large project that's happening in Liverpool. One subset of that is for 69 residential apartments, effectively one of these blocks. You can see the GDV there at 7.7 million. And this project is to raise a minimum of 250,000 equity up to a maximum of 750,000. The minimum investment is £500, and the projected return on investment is 19% per annum, and it's estimated to be a 24-month project. So that is the high level, if you like. So in terms of the team, I'll hand over to David Mason. If you want to introduce yourself first of all, and then we'll also, you can mention sort of Mitchell and some other main team members of INTEGRITAS.
Okay, thanks, David. Well, yeah, my name's David Mason. I'm the construction director for INTEGRITAS. I have too many years experience under my belt to really mention, but it's 30 plus in senior levels within the construction industry in the Northwest. I was invited to join INTEGRITAS by Mitchell to head the construction arm, which has been very successful. We've got an amazing team behind us now, led by Mitchell. So I obviously I'm in charge of all the operational side of the construction works. Alongside, I have a senior commercial quantity surveyor, Ben Morris, who again has a wealth of experience in the high-rise market. We've got Mark McCrudden, who's the buyer, and he basically ensures that all the projects, all the materials, all the supplies are well within budget and in a timely manner. And then we've just started a new member of the team, David Pearcey, who's basically a commercial assistant, just a man Friday really. another David, by the way. And that's the team.
Excellent. Okay, and you mentioned Mitchell there, Mitchell Walsh, who is the CEO, the sort of the main guy behind the brand, if you like. I've always been taken by his passion for Liverpool, his passion to, if you like, offer good accommodation to Liverpudlians, and certainly he's, if you like, is the energy and the visionary behind INTEGRITAS and ELAVACE.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a local guy who wants to just become a father and wants to leave a large legacy to his son. His drivers are most certainly upgrading the local environment as opposed to financial gain. And it spreads right throughout the business, to be honest with you. And I think it shows to all our investors that our main interest is the environment, the local economy, and this area of Liverpool is certainly thriving.
Brilliant. So before I go to Dave Mondey, David Mason, could you give us just a quick 360 of the site currently? So you're actually on site in Central Point. You're there, obviously doing your job of the construction part you play. So could you give us a quick 360, please, of the area?
Yeah, certainly. Well, this morning we had the monthly client meeting anyway, so we've had the design team on board. So it was a good time to host this webinar. So if I'm not sure on the technical side because I can't see the screen, but if you can confirm.
Yep, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. You can just...
So as you can see, it's being formed now. You can see the concrete columns for the concrete frame coming out of the ground. The wall down the left of the image is to retain the MOT, because that's the ground floor height of the basement of the car park, ground floor car park. As I pan round slowly, you'll see that all the pile caps have been formed and the concrete frame and starter bars are coming out all around. In the picture now, you'll see the central lift core and stair core with the starter bars. Again, they're coming out of the ground now, so things are really progressing. We've got another concrete pour on today, which sees, certainly by the close of play tomorrow, all the pile caps will be formed, which means that the first week in March, to the 7th of March, the car park will be to base core, so it'll have tarmac on it. So we're really moving ahead, and we're really excited about the way things are forming on site.
There we are. Yeah, I've actually should have done it earlier, a second ago. I've actually just changed my screen. So Brenda, is that now different than what it was a minute ago?
Yeah, we have a bigger view of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So sorry, David, even just do again a quick sort of 360 for me. I've just changed the screen setting. So we heard everything you said, which was brilliant, and now people get a better. There we are.
Fine.
Much better.
So that's you can see the wall there is the ground level basically, David. The columns are coming out of the ground. All the machinery is actually parked up at the moment because it's lunchtime, but they've just finished one pour. There's around 20 operatives on site today, so it's a busy site. And as I say, in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, this will all be black with tarmac, and then it's just a concrete frame to come out of the ground from that point.
Okay, excellent. So why don't we stay off? If you go back to yourself, I'm going to leave you on, so you're kind of on the big screen. There's no presentation at the minute, David. Okay. But I know some of the slides that anyway I was going to actually comment on. It's perhaps better doing it this way. So in terms of the spec and the finish, how have you went about, if you like, deciding on that, and what risk mitigation have you put in place given the rising of materials and all the other sort of pressures on construction?
Yeah, well, we've kind of gone a little bit off piste, and we've kind of adopted a joint venture approach with the principal contractor, David, and that means that we help in all the procurement. I explained the team that we've got behind us previously, So they scour the market for the best deals. They then pass it on to the principal contractor with our deal, with our terms. And that means that we have absolute robust methods in place to ensure that they don't just go out to the market and finances kind of lose track. We keep a very tight hold on it. There's no orders placed unless we sign them off, not just the principal contractor. So, and we're doing very early deals and securing the deals at today's rate because material prices are still hiking, and we need to ensure that what we're getting is at the right market rate. On top of which, quality-wise, it means that we can choose the specification, the high specification that we like to deliver, and there's no substitutes. We're actually sourcing all the materials and passing it on to the main contractor.
Okay, excellent. And in terms of your experience and some of the team that you're managing, this size of project, sort of this main tower block, 69 units, I mean, where does that sort of fit in your experience in terms of the size of deals you've done?
Okay, well, I've ranged projects I've been involved in have ranged from kind of small extra care facilities up to the likes of the new terminal at Liverpool Airport. So, and anything in between, a lot of listed building work, but mainly it's been accommodation projects up to around 30-35 million. So this is well within our capabilities, along with the team that have. Ben's worked on numerous high-rise schemes of a similar value, all in the local area. So he's got a vast knowledge of suppliers and consultants. And between us, we're very comfortable with projects of this scale.
Brilliant. Okay, so we are going to be letting you go in a minute. Yeah. So any questions, put them in the Q&A. And we can put any questions that are relevant for David Mason before he drops off. We're not going to ask him to stand for 45 minutes with a mobile phone in his hand.
It's going a little bit darker here, David, so thank you for that.
Dave Monday's just hoping it rains, aren't you, Dave? Dave Monday's hoping it rains.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It always puts a smile on my face when someone's out there in the rain, as long as it's not me.
Yeah.
I just have a quick
Brenda,
question. Yeah. Just because obviously you're coming out of the ground, and usually with sites, the problems arise probably before you come out of the ground or when you're coming out of the ground. I'm assuming you're past that stage, so it's well underway.
Absolutely, yeah. All absolutely right. All the unforeseeables are underground, as you well know. That's where costs can run away with themselves. We did a thorough pre-commencement kind of report and viability study, and everything, including an unexploded bomb survey that which had to do. So every risk has been taken into account, and we're comfortable now that we're coming out of the ground that it's pretty much straightforward.
Good. Yeah.
Any other questions, Brenda?
We have one on building costs. How are building costs being funded? And I think it's more to do with then what's the crowdfunding raise covering, basically. I know David can probably explain, David Johnson can explain the second one, but maybe David Mason, you can maybe touch on that first one then. How are building costs being funded?
Well, we've self-funded the start ourselves, to be honest with you. To this stage, this is all our own finances that have gone into the project. So we're just looking to for different avenues to raise, which David will go into greater detail on later, as you quite rightly say. But up to this stage, it's all self-funded.
That's good. Answers that one. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's fine. Dave Mondey, any other questions for David Mason before we let him go? You can
no, I'm fortunate. I've seen the site hundreds of times. It's only stone's throw from myself. So it's good to get on the webinar and pan the camera around for the people looking at this type of investment. So cheers for going out in the weather for me, Dave. I really didn't feel like it.
Don't worry, it's my job, Dave. No problem.
Fantastic. Well, listen, David Mason, I really appreciate taking time to join. I think it's been really useful to see that sort of live on site and hear from you sort of in the middle of your day job. So if you need to drop off there and get on with the rest of your work, feel free to do that now.
Okay, David. Thank you, and thanks to everybody who's joined. Much appreciated.
Fantastic. Thank you indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can go on to, so we've covered the project summary. In fact, Dave Mondey, so just maybe in your own words, this project you say about hundreds of times, how would you summarize this in like 2 or 3 sentences, this project?
So this project, and what is this project? It is a fabulous residential development just a stone's throw from the business district in the north of Liverpool. So 69 residential apartments consisting of anything from studios up to 2 beds, all varying in size and aspects depending on which floor they are. It's really targeted towards that luxury side of the development world, that young professional market. One, because it attracts a longer tenancy from an investment perspective, so it increases the dwell time of the tenants. But also, if they're utilising a sort of a short stay model on that property, it's round the corner from the Liverpool Waters regen. So you've got the Everton Stadium going up, which is capacity of 52,500, and studio size of sort of 80,000 if we're getting the concerts. Not too far from the Anfield Stadium for the short-term tenants as well. And it's such a vibrant city. I moved up here 6 years ago, so transition from London to Liverpool, and it is like a really mini London, but on a really small scale. You see such different sort of demographics of individuals and different parts of the city. So I'm really excited about this scheme and this entire development in Hull coming to the city.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. And you sort of leads in nicely. You've mentioned Liverpool. So in terms of perhaps investors who aren't aware of sort of the current economic situation in Liverpool and investment value, etc., what are some of the key things? Why should an investor consider Liverpool?
Well, for me, one of the big things is regeneration. So when you're looking to invest into an area from property or from crowdfunding, the key element there is there a driver for it? What's changing in that economy? Liverpool's really, really fortunate in terms of it's got a 5.5 billion regeneration of the Liverpool water screen. So that starts in the L3 postcode, which is where Central Point is, and runs all the way up the Dock Road into the L20 postcode of Bootle. That consists of your Everton Football Stadium, over 5,800 homes, 166,000 square meters of commercial space and offices, green park zones. So a huge driver to the area. As you know yourself, when you're creating that amount of commercial space, what you're doing is you're inviting large businesses to come to that area. The larger the businesses that come to that area, the more opportunity, the more jobs. The more jobs, the more demand for housing. And that's really, it's a supply and demand industry. And that's really what we're seeing with the expansion of Liverpool. As you can see from the figures on the slide in front of you, 14.8% growth predicted in the actual rental market. That's a huge increase on buy-to-let properties and the returns those investors expect. With a 16.7% growth in local house prices since March 2020. The average in most of the UK works out about 3% per year, 3.5% per annum. That's a massive boost to show really what's going on in the city as a whole. And one of the things that we don't really touch on as much as we should do is the tourism. So pre-COVID, there was over 62.5 million visitors per year to Liverpool. And that's both day tourists, weekend tourists, and overseas coming to see the city. You've got the Beatles, the Cavern Club, the Royal Albert Dock, the football, which we always have to touch on, which kills me as a Man United fan, but you've still got the football, which is a huge driver to that area. And it's one of those, for me, until I moved here, I didn't quite realise how much was in the city. But now, and you probably see it in the news, it completely transitioned that image. And you can see it with the growth that's going on here so far.
Yeah, so some certainly key drivers that you talked about there, which is important. And I think another thing which is interesting is that as well as some of the key sort of attractions, transport links are very good for Liverpool, given international airports nearby and just the whole train network, etc.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, train into London from Liverpool Lime Street takes just over 2 hours. Distance from central Liverpool to Liverpool Airport in a car, 10 minutes, depending on the time of the day. So don't hold me to that. I did it the other day with an investor on Friday afternoon. It was a bit longer. You're in central Manchester in the car in 45 minutes. I mean, you fly over and see us, once every couple of months? We've met you face to face. And what does it take you from Ireland to Liverpool? Half an hour?
It's a 35-minute flight.
it's such a well-connected part of the country. Even the motorway network up here is so well connected. Liverpool, London, Scotland. I drove down to London myself yesterday for the PropTech show. Drove down to London 4 hours back, straight through.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it's such a huge expansion in the city.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's all really important points. And then you mentioned there the location. So Central Point is just at the top of the photograph there, where my cursor is now. And then this massive regeneration, redevelopment project is all just to the south of it. So really you're on the edge of this major redevelopment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's key when you look at that map, and apologies because I am colorblind, so I forget the colors wrong. It's just how I see them. But that gold color, which you see, is really the heart of the business district of Liverpool. So if you're an insurance company, a finance company, investment consultancy company, they're all based out of that sort of orange sector. And that's really what we're feeding in terms of that young working professional environment. Slightly to the north of that is that Liverpool Waters expansion. You can see it where it's expanding up to the docklands and up to the sides. If you go slightly down into where the number 10 is, that's then bringing you on to the Royal Albert Dock and the the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the Three Graces, down to the south of the city, which is where Liverpool first saw its regeneration, which was the Baltic Triangle. Now they've expanded that area to a point, and now the only part the city really can expand is north. Can't go west because you'll end up in the water. East is full of the standard housing that Liverpool has, as we see in every city. So really you're seeing that regeneration of the Liverpool Waters and the 10 Streets project up towards the north and pushing through those postcodes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And again, if you have any questions, get them in the Q&A, and we'll be taking questions just in a minute. So David Mason obviously has given us a really good so have you any idea where he was standing with this picture? So
yeah, you can't. So yeah, on that where your cursor is at the minute, if you go slightly to the left, it's hard to not be able to point it out. A bit more to the left, he's at the back of that tower there, which is the Central Point Tower. Okay. That's exactly where he was standing, looking left to the Bastion Point and right to the other parts of the block as well.
Yes.
Where you see that square space in the middle, that is the piazza. So that's a consistency of that commercial space where you might find, a Whole Foods restaurant, sort of a vegan eatery, bits like that, really placemaking for that area. And that's really the vision for this postcode of Liverpool. IPG aren't the only developer in this postcode. And the whole thing about this is creating what we saw in Manchester with that Ancoats development or the Media City development. And that's what this is. It's all a placemaking event and driving people to the right part of the city.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. And it was great to have David Mason sort of getting a feel for where he was in that photograph. So fantastic. So David referred to the finish. He referred to the layout. I mean, from a marketing point of view, and you kind of head up the distribution side of the INTEGRITAS property group. I mean, I'm assuming you've done your homework, what the buyers want in terms of size, layout, like what
absolutely.
For a second.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why the development is split across, the studios, the 1-beds and the 2-beds, to create that diversity for investors. What you don't want is a block of all of one of the same. You don't want that cookie cutter model. It needs to be different because that's what drives that demand. And that's what I love about working with Mitchell. He understands the desire from a tenant perspective, but also from an investor perspective as well. We're very fortunate because the models work. This block itself is completely sold out. So every single one of these residential apartments have been sold, which is great for the crowdfunded investors, of course, but also great for the development company to see that progressing. And you can see from the floor plan in front of you in terms of the diversity in the model. You've got those studio apartments, which create a bit more of an affordable living space, but doesn't lack on the luxury. You've got your standard 1-beds for, your individuals or maybe a young couple that would be working and living in the city. Then you've got the 2-bedroom apartments, which would take on, maybe 2 friends sharing. We've got a couple of guys in the office who are actually looking at trying to rent apartments in here when they're done, where they're sharing apartments at the moment and they club in. And that's, like I said, that's the positivity of the diversity of the block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've worked with sort of larger developers like INTEGRITAS and yourselves, and I know the amount of effort goes into actually designing the product, because at the end of the day you have to get buyers. It's not how it looks, it's well, people actually buy it.
Absolutely.
You actually mentioned there that all these have actually been pre-sold. Brendan, from a
Correct.
compliance point of view, obviously when Integritas informed us of that, how did we verify that in terms of, what did we get sight of that allowed us to sort of allow that claim to be made?
Okay, well, obviously Integritas supplied us with information in the background of some of the sale data, basically, and also I think basically you take a 30% contract on whatever
deposit,
sales you make. So you've taken that 30% deposit, so you're showing us information based on that, and obviously funds in and what have you to show that was verifiable.
Yeah, and obviously then as the normal sort of finance method of a pre-sale off-plan sale is only when the project gets to a certain level signed off by the engineers is then funds from the purchaser allowed to be drawn down and used in those scenarios. So yeah, it's a really important point to make, Dave, that these are actually pre-sold. One of the biggest challenges of development is it's all right having a nice GDV, you have to be able to exit. And certainly the crowdfunding investors, it's a big question is how, where's the exit? In this situation, all the buyers have actually bought, they've paid a deposit, you have their promissory contracts, and as soon as you build it, there's obviously a ready-made exit there. Not to say some things, this is still property, things can still go wrong, but in terms of the current offering, it's really nice comfort levels to have these units pre-sold.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to how we design the buildings. A lot of people think you go to an architect and they just come to market. There's so much background work that goes before the design is even done, before it goes to the planning and gets signed off. And to be fair, that's credit to Mitchell. I mean, he's been in the industry, over 10 years now, and he's seen what works and what doesn't work when you bring blocks to the market. So he's been able to sort of utilize that experience to design each block to ensure that we have that thorough sales process, but also in the environment of the crowdfunders, the exit strategy. Yeah.
And I should just highlight as well, I mean, Mitchell has done a number of similar projects and delivered those projects. So while this is a bit of CAD imagery, Integritas has actually delivered similar schemes.
Absolutely. I mean, we probably haven't, but probably should touch on a little bit of sort of Mitchell's journey, sort of into development if we've got the time. I mean, it was something that was, I would assume, was an accident, to be honest, if we want to word it that way. I mean, I've worked for Mitchell for just over 5 years now, and ELAVACE formed as a multi-development sales agency. So we sold property for developers all across the Northwest. During COVID, what we saw was a number of developers who weren't able to fulfill their promises, not due to their own faults, but obviously given the current circumstances and the pandemic, brought a lot of those projects down. One in particular, we had a huge number of our own investors in the scheme, which is a development just outside Manchester called the Lice. Now, that really spurred Mitchell on to sort of save that scheme and save the investors. He rallied with the investors, put the proposal together and bought the site out of administration. Grade 2 listed building, fabulous development. And that's really where we've started this journey into development. He brought that on and went, wow, look what you can do if you want to deliver for the people correctly. If you really want to not be greedy, price the units to sell, but there's still a profit margin in it for the developers. And that's really where we are right now. And it comes from, obviously, from the name Integritas. It's building with integrity, but everything this business model is made on is how does it help the investor, and how does the investor maintain that relationship with ELAVACE and with Integritas Property Crew.
Brilliant. Okay. No, thanks for that clarity. Okay, let's get into finances and then move on to the Q&A. So in terms of the sort of the high level of the finances there, you can see GDV 7.7 million, and that's pretty much fixed because you have the promissory contracts for 7.7 million. Your purchase price, stamp duty, all pretty basic. Hard cost 4.7 million. Nothing really unusual in those sets of figures. Senior debt, you've obviously allowed for senior debt. Where's the senior debt up to has that been chosen as yet, or are you still keeping your options open of when to bring?
Yeah, there's two on the table at the moment with Mitchell, which I probably can't disclose on here actually, but there's two individual. Yeah, but I won't say just in case. There's two funders in particular. One we've had terms on, and one we're waiting on terms on. In terms of which avenue to go down, there is a preferred lending partner, because we've worked with them on a different project, so that's who we prefer to go with. But ultimately, it all comes down to the terms of the funding and what's the most attractive for the developer and for the investors.
Mm-hmm. And that really answers the question Brenda was asked earlier about what's the crowdfunding raise for. Well, it's really a bit of whip money in terms of where the project is. There's been money put in by the company itself, and then there's going to be a senior debt lender, obviously helping with the actual build cost, and the sort of whip money, work in progress money, is really what the crowdfunding raise is covering. So you're looking at an approximate forecasted net profit of 910,000 is what is the key figure, if you like, key takeaway figure for the investors. So in terms then of the investors coming in, I'll just sort of explain this from the crowdfunding side. Crowdfunding investors have a priority share. So the profit that was indicated there, 900,000, the first profit that comes in goes to the crowd investors. So if we take the crowdfunding raise at 750,000, the projected ROI on that, the return is 19% per annum, estimated to be a 2-year project. If it does run into year 3, Dave, you're actually willing to increase the ROI to 24% after the 2 years.
Yeah, correct. So part of the thing when we made this, we alongside the girls with Mitchell, was if the event that it does slightly overrun, then the investors would get 24% in year 3. It creates that driving force from the development company as well to finish this as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So if we take the projected ROI over the 2 years, if it is the 2 years, that would represent 19%, obviously times 2 represents 285,000 is what is due to go back to the investors for the 750,000 that was invested. Now, how that gets laid out is there's a class of share issued by the SPV that owns the asset. There's 1,500 shares issued. Minimum, the share price is £500. That's also the minimum investment amount. So one share, obviously. And what's important to note is that the ROI at the end of the process is calculated as a percentage of the net profit. So the net profit, 900,000, that 285 figure, which is the projected ROI, it's expressed as a percentage of the net profit, which is 31.3%. So the first profit that comes into the project goes to the crowd investors until they've reached 285,000. Only then does the principal then receive any profit out of the deal. So it's obviously crowd investors or equity investors. There's no security, there's no debentures, there's no personal guarantees. It's equity. And as the risk warning says at the bottom, no guarantees. So it's important that you do look at the risk element of property investing, but you look at all the information provided and decide if this is a risk that's worth taking in terms of investment. But that really explains, hopefully quite clearly, for the crowd investors, you literally receive a 19% ROI projected, and that gets expressed as a percentage of the net profit. So 31% of the net profit of the project goes to the crowd investors. Okay, so that is that. And has already been alluded to, there is already units pre-sold, and each of those buyers have paid a 30% deposit, which is obviously held in escrow to be drawn down at the appropriate time. But that, I think, it's massive, Dave, when it comes to an exit for investors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you'll know this much better than me, but if I was an investor looking at this scheme, one of the biggest risks for me was how I'm actually going to realise my capital at the end of the scheme. Ultimately, we have to sell those apartments for the profit to be realised. We're offering an opportunity here where we've already sold the properties. So we're taking away one of the biggest risk elements from an investor perspective, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. In the previous webinars, David Mason's done a really good job on these, just referring to what are the risk factors. You know, Dave's just mentioned the one of actually selling, which is usually a very big one. There were planning conditions that had to be discharged. There are obviously planning contributions, the S106 contribution, and then you got the contingencies. Dave went in a lot of detail about how they've done the contingencies figures on that. So contingencies within the contract with the contractor, and then their own contingencies overriding that. So plenty of thought given to these risks, which obviously is very important. Conflict of interest. So again, just to highlight, obviously we're hosting this webinar as Leo crowdfunding. We provide the compliance umbrella. All what you're seeing here is approved as a financial promotion, so signed off as a financial promotion. So that's our involvement in this. We do not deduct fees from any investors. So investors who invest in this project, none of that goes to Leo crowdfunding. The developer pays our fees. And just to highlight that INTEGRITAS is the developer. That is who the fundraiser is in this project. And they use a sister company, ELAVACE, as their distribution sort of marketing company. And Dave, some of the personnel are effectively double-hatted within both companies, as tends to happen.
Yeah, correct. There's a number that sit across both companies. I myself purely sit with the ELAVACE branding. My job is to oversee obviously the sales of the apartments and obviously ultimately come onto these, have conversations with the investors when we're talking about the crowdfunding perspective as well.
Yeah, so you can go to the conflict of interest section in the document, and if you have any questions or concerns about that, you can go there. So Brenda will take questions maybe quickly, and then we'll do the next step, wrap up.
Yeah, okay. Quite a few of the questions are actually based around the apartments themselves, so I'll go quickly through those because a couple of them are quite similar. Some of our attendees on the webinar today want to know the estimated value or cost of the apartments, say as a purchase for this, say a studio flat, for example, if you want to just outline the cost.
Yeah, of course. So costings vary depending on obviously where the apartment is situated, size of the apartment, and what floor the apartment's on. So range of prices in this development started at £128,000 for a studio apartment, ranging up to about £232,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. So there's quite a bit of variation in between, as you can imagine, but split over the 7 residential floors. It's all based on the size, the perspective, the aspect of the view, the layout of the properties, the amount of bathrooms, as you can probably imagine.
Okay, good answer. Then someone else has queried, are there going to be residential facilities, gyms, other things that there would be service charges on?
No, so the idea behind INTEGRITAS Property Group is we try and keep the developments as standard residential developments. Well, the last thing they want to do is put in gymnasiums, swimming pools, saunas, because ultimately that does drive up the cost of the service charge. There is a rooftop garden on phase 1, which has access to all blocks to get onto it, but it's very low maintenance. Service charge forecast for this development comes in at around £2.20 per square foot. So standard residential service charges.
Okay, good. What would be the main key risks relating to the development project? What do you think would be, I think we've maybe touched on it, if David wants to maybe go back up to that key risk slide, but maybe just emphasize any key risks there. And I know David would have done that before. Yeah,
of course. So we have run through obviously some of the risk factors. Firstly is the exit, which I think we've covered in terms of the apartments are pre-sold. So that EDV is pretty much locked in for the crowdfunded investors. All of the planning conditions, and apologies, I'm not the construction director, so I can't run you through the ins and outs of the codes. But the planning conditions and the pre-commencement conditions have all been completed. Otherwise, the lads wouldn't be allowed on site in their high visibility jackets, drilling the floors. Section 106 is a contribution to the local council. So that has been done under phase 1 of the development and therefore doesn't impact Central Point or this block of it. And also the contingency, which obviously Dave Johnson touched on earlier. That figure, the exact figure for that is in the equity offer document in terms of that 5%. which is industry standard. And because obviously the relationship INTEGRITAS Property Group have with their main contractor, it's a unique relationship in terms of we help them drive their costs down, increase their profit, therefore it drives down the cost for the development company as well. It's quite unique. You don't see it very often, but they've got such a great relationship. They're able to utilize, you know, our buyers like Mark McCrudden to go in and help Avery drive down their costings.
Okay. And that leads sort of into another question, which is talking about the sensitivity analysis on the GDV. How much would the build costs need to increase, or the GDV need to decrease by until you sort of hit a point where investor returns are gone or the capital's gone? So that probably leads into your contingency. It's quite a weighted question, but
yeah, it is a weighted question. So obviously there is a 5% contingency on a cost build, which, apologies, the exact figure, hang on, I've got it in front of me, £235,000. So we've got that contingency in place. Ultimately, if this question is coming from a crowdfunded investor, I'm assuming the angle of this is how much has that got to decrease by before it's impacted on them? Well, obviously, you can see by the stack of the return to investors, so that 31% of net profit. So ultimately, you'd have to reduce it, simple maths, 69%. What would actually have to reduce before that would impact the investors? Because obviously, as they hold the priority share, their profits are paid out before the developers. So we'd have to wipe out a huge percentage for any of the crowdfunded investors to be impacted.
Yeah, and it's a good time to point out that there's always risk, and read the risk warnings before you invest. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Every investment carries risk. It's risk versus reward. Our role here is to mitigate the risks as much as we physically can to make these investors feel confident in our ability and in the investment itself.
Okay. Another person has a question just on the studio floor plans. They were saying that they seem to indicate shared bathrooms and kitchens. I wasn't sure. I just I couldn't see the studio floor plans when you were passing through, but
no. So all the apartments are self-contained, so they have their own bathroom and their own kitchen space. It might have just been difficult to see because the floor plans on the angle. But you can see as you go through, enter the door for something like LGO1. We can all see that on the floor plans. Walk through the main door, your bathroom is on the right-hand side. Obviously, it's the studio apartment. As you walk into the main bedroom, you see that hash line in there, opposite the bed, on the left of the bed. That would be your kitchen space.
Okay. Yeah, well, that clears that one up. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to raise it just in case. And then that, obviously, they're talking about HMO licensing. I suppose that qualifies for it if everyone has their own space and what have you.
Correct. All the apartments we deliver would be self-contained. It's better from a tenant perspective, to be completely honest with you. Not many people want to share bathrooms and kitchens in this day and age, especially post-COVID. People really want their own space, and that's why there's been so much of a demand for these type of properties on the market.
Very good. Okay, and I have quite a big question around the funding stack. You're obviously talking 750 from the Leo crowdfunding investors. That's what's on the platform at the minute. Are there other equity sources coming into that? And I know you've touched on the debt. The question was around primary debt, secondary debt, and what happens if the 750 isn't fully raised? How does that impact? And I'll let you answer those, and then I'll come on to the next stage of the question.
So firstly, the Leo investors and the equity raise are the only equity investors into this scheme. So there will be no secondary equity investors into the scheme whatsoever. Apologies, what was the second part of the question?
You've touched sort of the debt then. Have you primary and secondary sources, or you just basically, I know you touched on it earlier.
Yeah, just primary lending. So it'd be senior bank finance, won't stack with mezz or anything like that. It'd be senior bank finance.
Okay. And then what happens if the full 750k is not raised from this round of the crowdfunding?
So I suppose that's more of a question for David Johnston. So we've maxed the funding at 750,000 as maximum raise, but the minimum raise required is 250,000. So what the idea behind this entire raise was to create the opportunities for investors to get involved in property if they couldn't buy individual units themselves. So we set the target at 250,000, which was agreed all round. But we also agreed to extend that to 750,000 to allow other investors to capitalise on the opportunity.
So I can maybe just add to that, Brenda, just add sort of the clarity around that. So absolutely, as Dave says, 250 minimum, 750 max. I mean, if it, say the crowd fund raises 300, 400, 500, and there is a gap, well then obviously the onus is back on Integritas to replace that, either by putting in more money themselves. They're probably going to be maxing out on their senior debt. I'm gathering, because that's the cheapest money. So I'm making that assumption. And certainly there's no intention, as Dave says, currently to have any other equity investors. But it's maybe fair to say, Dave, if there was a shortfall, that you wouldn't rule out potentially another equity investor coming to the table. Maybe someone of directors of the company, or whatever the case may be. So it's not the plan, but any gap will be made up either by the company itself and its own funds, or potentially another equity investor from another source, and possibly a different share class. They obviously couldn't outrank the crowd investors, because they would have the first priority over the profit. So any other additional equity investors would be behind crowd investors.
Okay, good clarity on that one. And another backup question on that one. You talked about the primary lender earlier, and in the current climate, how confident are you that this lender will not pull out at the last minute? And I know that is something that has been raising its head at times with changes in the market.
Yeah, no, of course. And this is why we go out to multiple different lenders in the marketplace, because obviously as a developer, they always want to cover the risk element. So we go out to multiple different funding sources. We've worked with our preferred lender previously, and we have terms on the table for another development. So the likelihood that they would pull that would be highly unlikely, but we do have backup lenders in place if that was a scenario.
That's good. Okay. Then we have, how have you achieved the great sales to date? Can we expect the remaining flats to also sell off plan and quite quickly?
Yeah, so all of the apartments will be sold off plan across the entire project. In total, the entire scheme is 240 residential apartments. The last two blocks of the apartment have around 32 apartments left altogether. So it tells you we sold over 200 apartments in the scheme to date so far.
Correct.
So I'd imagine the last 32 would be gone next 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay. As long as your sales team or your sales boss doesn't hear you saying that, so you're going right, holding you to that.
No, we're fortunate. So even though we operate as a master agent, Integritas also has a sub-agent network as well, who also sell the apartments alongside. So the properties will be sold around the world. We have agencies over in Dubai, over in China, over in places like Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, as well as the UK. So they get sold to multiple different nationals.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just add there. I know it was very clear, but just for the purpose of the recording, obviously Dave's talking about the selling of the whole unit, which obviously is different than investing into the project. The whole unit is obviously that can be sold to a buyer anywhere in the world, effectively, and it shows you the multi sort of national appeal Liverpool has, that you've got buyers from so many different countries, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that on Champions League night. Always. You get a Champions League night here in Liverpool and you just see, I mean, our office, I can see Live Street Station from my office, and you just see the floods of multinationalities coming in from all over the world. And that's the appeal that Liverpool has. Everybody loves the Beatles. Most people love football. So you've got a huge driving force of the city.
I can't resist, Dave. You're talking about Champions League night. It's funny that you didn't actually have to clarify that it was Liverpool was playing, not Everton, when it came to Champions League night.
Well, did that need clarifying?
Anyway, hope there's no Everton fans on. I apologize if you want. Anyway, Brenda, we need to wrap up probably in 2 or 3 minutes. So any quick fire ones we can do, like sort of one sentence answers.
Yeah, there's questions on the price of the one bed, but I think you've already covered that, ranging between 128k to 232k. So car parking, I believe Dave Mason said they were putting in the structure for the car parking whenever he was live on site. So I'm assuming there's a car park.
There is car parking, that's correct. So car parking is over 2 floors underneath phase 1. Total amount of car parking space 62. Don't quote me on that. It might be 61. So apologies if I'm out by one parking space or not. Parking spaces are also available for purchase as well. The parking spaces are sold at £15,000 per space.
Okay, we have one on the interest rate on the senior debt. I'm not sure if maybe you've tied that down yet. So that may
Yeah,
still-
and also I wouldn't be the individual to answer that question, in all honesty. That goes through to our finance director and investment director, No2, who does all of the rates for the funding. We get the figures, which are obviously in the equity offer document, in terms of what the anticipated cost of that would be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
If-
and one
if
final
that-
one probably for David then is the current round of crowdfunding expected to close, what the timeline is on that.
Yep. Okay. So I'll just finish off with David's question. If between now and the raise closing, INTEGRITAS does tie down or agree to senior lending, obviously that information will be distributed to all those who have made pledges on the project. So and particularly if it happens after, then as shareholders, obviously you get full sight, full transparency, full disclosure on everything the SPV is doing. So as soon as INTEGRITAS tie that down with a lender and choose a lender, the terms would be made available, of course, to all the investor shareholders. In terms of the length of project, it's obviously 750 is a pretty big chunk. INTEGRITAS this is the first time they've done a crowdfunding raise. It's probably fair to say, Dave, there's been that sort of teething on both sides as we've tried
Very
to
much
sort
so.
of not rush it, but bring it to market as soon as we physically can. We could have made a decision to leave it for 6-7 weeks and dot every I, cross every T, but it was like, let's get it out there. Let's engage with your investor base. Let's answer the questions, etc. So, I mean, how long's a piece of string in terms of a deal funding? We have some deals fund like in one day on the platform, and others take 3, 4, 5 weeks. So, I mean, we've had some really good traction with this. It's fair to say, the amount of investors from the ELAVACE source who have registered on the platform. I know, Dave, you've got staff members who are just literally working almost full time on those who are registering, KYC,
Absolutely.
AML, appropriateness tests. So the traction has been really, really, really exciting with investors who are registering with a view then to investing. So, but it's very difficult to put a time on it. It could be a week. It could be maybe 10 days, 14 days. But I'd like to think within 14 days this will be fully funded up to the 750. Is that you, Brenda? And you have my questions?
Yes, I believe
Yep.
so. And there's
Okay,
a question on if things change to the development, how are people notified? I'm not sure if they mean the buyers of the flats or the crowdfunding people, so I'm not really just quite sure on that one. But if there's any changes on the crowdfunding side, we have a facility to put updates on the pitch pages. So
yes, correct.
Yeah.
And in your profile, when you're registered on the platform and you go to your profile, and then if you have invested in this one, then there's a tab for updates. So you can literally updates are put in there for you and then kept in the same place where you can access that information. So, okay, listen, just to wrap up. It's been a really good webinar. A lot of questions covered there. It was great to have David Mason on site. Just let me explain, particularly to the ones who are perhaps new to crowdfunding, what are the next steps. So we obviously encourage you to go, and you can see there on the screen the documents there. Download what we call the equity offer document. It contains much more information than we have been able to cover today. A lot more on the financials, a lot more on the risk, the conflict of interest, all those things that have been discussed already. That's the document, financially promotion approved. Look at it, make your decision. If you decide, yep, this is for me, then you can see 13 investors already have invested. You click next steps, and then if you go to the top of the screen, you can see there it'll ask you to put in the amount that you wish to invest. That's the sterling amount. You confirm that amount, and it will then tell you how many shares that gets you. So if someone was to invest 10,000, that's 20 shares. Click to continue the payment, and then you have the two choices. You either can move money directly to your e-wallet on the platform, or you can pay by a bank transfer into the project e-wallet by requesting a unique reference number. So that is the next steps after registration. You can do that once you've read and you're happy. You can then go straight next steps, put in the amount you want to invest, confirm it, continue the payment, and select either money into e-wallet or money direct by a bank transfer. And that should be that. Anything, Brenda, I've missed on that?
No, I don't believe so. Maybe just to clarify with our new FCA rules that if you're a completely new investor signing up for the first time, there will be a slight delay, a 24-hour cooling off period just before you can proceed to those next steps. But If you're already registered over 24 hours, then yes, you'll be able to follow that process.
Yep. So if you have any questions, then you can reach out to investors@leocrowdfunding.com, and we'll be very happy to answer any questions. And again, there's the link to the risk warning. So listen, I think that is us for today. Dave, I'll give you the last 30 seconds as the main guy in the project.
Yeah, look, I just want to say thank you for having us, and thank you for bringing a project to the platform. It's great to deliver something different for investors. And thank you ever so much for the investors taking the time to listen to the project and see if it's something that's of interest for them.
Absolutely fantastic. So again, if you're ready to invest, just head over there, get your pledge on, and then once it reaches target, shareholder agreement comes out, which you get a chance to review, and then complete your investment. So thanks for your time. Recording will be available and sent out to you later on this afternoon. And we look forward to working with those who decide to invest and become shareholders in this exciting project. All the best, everyone. Thank you, Brenda, for your help.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.